Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Often when people hear about required minimum distributions or RMDs, it can feel a little bit intimidating. The government coming along and literally forcing you to take a set amount out of your account, whether you need it or not. For some, it feels like losing a little bit of control over their carefully crafted retirement plan. For others, it raises fears of bigger tax bills or even Medicare surcharges as their income gets pushed higher. And I get it, RMDs are a hot topic in the personal finance world. I've covered them in several videos because there are so many questions and so much confusion around how they work. But here's the truth. For the vast majority of retirees, RMDs probably don't matter, and I'm going to show you why in this video. We'll walk through a couple examples and show the circumstances where they do matter as well. Let's start with the basics. Most retirees have relatively modest account balances. Data from the Federal Reserve and the EBRI show that households nearing retirement, ages 55 to 64, the median IRA or 401k balance is only about $120,000 to $150,000, with similar balances for those 65 plus. At age 73, the age at which RMDs begin for today's retirees, the IRS divisor is 26.5. That means if you had a $150,000 account, your very first RMD would only be about $5,600. But let's expand this example. Let's say you only ever take out the RMD at your respective age and that the rest of your money stays invested, growing at a rate of about 7% per year. Now, this may be an aggressive growth rate depending on how you're invested during your retirement, but those are the numbers we're going to use for this example. As you can see, even into your 70s, 80s, and 90s, those RMDs stay fairly modest. By age 80, the required withdrawal is only about $8,800. By age 85, it's just under $12,000. Even at age 90 or 95, the annual RMDs peak in the $15,000 to $18,000 range. Notice throughout much of this timeline, the account balance is holding steady or modestly growing. Even by age 100, where we start to see the account balance taper a bit, your withdrawals aren't astronomical. And of course, if our retiree was willing to take out more than their RMD or start drawing from their account before RMDs actually kick in, it would reduce future RMDs and the potential tax burden that came with them. For retirees with account balances like this, even when you layer Social Security income on top of the withdrawals, these aren't earth-shattering sums, so it's unlikely that these draws are going to create a heavy tax burden or completely derail your retirement plans. And most people simply take the RMD amount, nothing more. That isn't just my opinion, that's what the data shows. According to the EBRI, about 84% of people at RMD age only take the minimum required amount. The investment company Institute finds something very similar. About 76% of IRA owners who withdraw money set their withdrawal equal to the RMD. And this behavior is worth paying attention to because for many retirees, their accounts are seen as something to be preserved and not spent. And this mindset can lead to retirees being overly conservative or allowing IRS tables to dictate their spending behavior, not lifestyle factors. Now, if your actual lifestyle spending needs line up perfectly with this RMD table, that's great and pretty magical, but chances are your spending is more unique to you than a simple IRS table. And remember, your money isn't just meant to sit there. It's meant to be enjoyed and building the lifestyle you want to live, the one you've worked so hard for. Now, with all of that said, that doesn't mean RMDs are irrelevant for everyone. The real tax impact shows up for wealthier retirees. Say you have an account that has high six figures, or maybe the balance surpasses $1 million. Or consider that when we look at median balances, we're looking at individual accounts, and these surveys have no way to differentiate someone who has multiple accounts. So if you have multiple accounts that have modest balances, that could add up to multiple accounts with RMDs, and that could have an impact. So if you have a lofty sum sitting in tax-deferred accounts and then you layer in Social Security and perhaps add in a pension, this is when RMDs can create a tax headache. They can push you into higher marginal tax brackets, they can trigger IRMA surcharges on your Medicare Part B and D premiums, and they can cause more of your Social Security benefits to become taxable. For this group of retirees, and yes, it is a smaller share of total retirees, but probably a larger share of retirees who are actually watching personal finance related content, RMDs can force you to draw more than you would naturally want to spend in retirement. For this group, this is where Roth conversions or qualified charitable distributions or tax bracket management can start to make a really big difference. And if that's you, I have a handful of videos on this channel that can walk you through the strategy in detail. So you may be asking, why does it feel like the financial media makes RMDs sound like a universal problem? Quite honestly, because edge cases make compelling stories. A retiree who has $1 or $2 million sitting in a traditional 401k forced to take a six-figure RMD, that's dramatic, and drama gets clicks. But statistically, most households don't have account balances anywhere near those levels. And if you have more modest account balances, you're going to have more modest RMDs, so they aren't going to create any sort of overwhelming tax burden. For the majority of retirees, RMDs are either fairly modest or simply redundant for the withdrawal they would have otherwise made. Let's put this into perspective with the best data we have. Unfortunately, there is no public data that gives us a breakdown of aggregate retirement accounts for 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, or the median, the 75th percentile, the 90th, the 95th. So we're going to have to kind of piece things together and do our best here. What I've done is triangulate data from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the DQY-DJ dataset, and a handful of industry studies. Importantly, we're stripping out everything that doesn't face an RMD. So no home equity, no vehicles, no CDs, no checking accounts, no taxable brokerage accounts, and importantly, no Roth accounts. We're only looking at a traditional IRA or traditional 401k style plan. So here's some conservative brackets that stays consistent with the best data we have. An account balance of up to $25,000 would put you around the 25th percentile. From $40,000 to $150,000 would put you around the 50th percentile or the median. $300,000 to $600,000 would put you towards the 75th percentile. $700,000 to $1.1 million might put you in the 90th percentile range, and $1.1 million to $2 million plus would put you around the 95th percentile. So now that we have a range of account balances, let's look at what the RMD might look like at each level. At the 25th percentile, about $25,000 invested, the RMD is less than $1,000. That's barely going to move the needle on anyone's taxes. For the median account balance, let's say around $150,000, you're looking at an RMD of about $5,600. Remember what it means to be the median. That means half of all retirees have less than this amount and half of all retirees have more. So we have a big chunk of retirees who are having a very modest withdrawal on their accounts. At the 75th percentile, let's say around $500,000, the RMD jumps to about $19,000. This is where things may start to matter, especially if you're part of a dual income household. You have dual Social Security payments, maybe you have a pension or two. This is the point where you may really start to feel the tax impact, but you still may have room to plan around it. At the 90th and the 95th percentile, about $1 to $2 million, this is where RMDs become truly sizable. $38,000 to $75,000 plus annually. And the challenge isn't just the amount. With accounts at these levels, it's very likely that your portfolio is continuing to grow at a faster rate than the RMD you're pulling out. So likely your account balance is continuing to get larger and larger, and as each passing year goes by, your RMD factor gets smaller and smaller. So this means your RMD that you have to take out every single year gets larger and larger, and that's when it becomes a problem. And this is really the point where retirees need to seriously think about the tax impact of their withdrawals and their RMDs. And this is why we talk about things like Roth conversions, qualified charitable distributions, and tax bracket management. Here's perhaps a general guideline to think about. Take your tax-deferred balance at 73 and divide it by 26.5. That's going to be your first RMD. If that number falls between, say, $5,000 to $10,000, it's probably not going to make a meaningful dent in your taxes. But if it's, say, $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 or more, you're in the territory where RMD planning really starts to matter. And if you're projecting what your account balances might look like in the future, let's say you're currently in your 50s or your 60s, run this on what your accounts might grow to by the time you're 73 or 75 for when RMD age increases. That way you can kind of project down the road if RMDs will be an issue for you or not. So does this mean Roth conversions are a bad idea for most people? Not necessarily, and I really don't like to make blanket statements. And as with everything in finance, it comes down to your personal situation. From a pure tax standpoint, many retirees don't need to do a Roth conversion. If your account balances are modest, it's very likely that your RMDs will be modest and won't push you into a higher tax bracket. So there may be little or no tax benefit for you to do this type of conversion. And here's the other risk of waiting. If you don't do a conversion early enough and you're trying to hit some break-even point where it finally pays off, you may not actually live long enough to see that benefit. But sometimes there are reasons to convert that go beyond a spreadsheet. It's like that debate when it comes down to should you pay off your home early or should you invest? You can run the math and you can get the numbers, but for some people, it comes down to psychology and peace of mind, not the numbers. Here are some non-tax reasons a Roth conversion can still make sense. Flexibility for future withdrawals. Roth accounts don't have any RMDs, so if you want complete control on when and how you take money out of these accounts, Roths give you 100% flexibility. Estate planning benefits. Roth assets can be far more tax efficient to leave to heirs, since withdrawals are tax-free for them. Imagine your child inheriting a fairly modest IRA, say $200,000 in their peak earning years. This could absolutely bump them into a higher tax bracket, or at the very least, force them to pay a higher tax rate on the draws from this account than you would have otherwise had to pay. Now, of course, you are under no obligation to cover this tax bill, but many parents choose to try and handle this tax bill while they're alive rather than passing it on to their child at a higher rate. Future tax uncertainty. With national debt in the trillions of dollars and growing every single day, it's hard to imagine tax rates going down in the future. Roth conversions allow you to sort of lock in today's rates on that portion of your portfolio when the future rates can feel uncertain. So while a Roth conversion certainly may not be necessary for the vast majority of retirees, they can still be a valuable planning tool depending on your long-term goals. And if you want a deeper dive, I have an entire video that walks through essentially a Roth conversion decision tree so you can decide if a Roth conversion is something that makes sense to you. I will link it above and down below. Just remember, many people decide to do a conversion for reasons that go beyond taxes. Here's the real takeaway. RMDs probably don't matter for most retirees because most account balances are modest and most people just take the RMD and move on. But remember, if you've built up accounts with bigger balances, that's where planning becomes very powerful. And remember, I do have videos that walk through these decisions step by step. Your retirement should be built around your lifestyle, your goals, and your peace of mind. And that is exactly what planning helps you do. So what are your thoughts on RMDs? Leave them in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. Seriously? The number of hairs I just find in random places. Sound is off on my watch. Let's turn sound off on my computer. Let's do it. Create a huge tax burden. Or, what's that other thing I wanted to say? Idea of what? No. Take your tax deferred from your pure. Hi, Letty. Come on up. Come on. Here we go. Let's see. Would you sit with me? Look, I got a spot for you right here. Will you sit right here? People would love to see you. Here. Ooh.